Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled End Times 292, The Truth About the Great Tribulation, Part 2, The Great Tribulation, the Great Distress. The podcast objectives are reveal the source of the great error surrounding the Great Tribulation, analyze the importance of the people in each word of prophecy, restate the purpose of these last days, and review the scriptures revealing the purpose of these last days. This lesson contains timelines and other visuals. Therefore, if you are listening to the podcast, I advise you to watch the video version on our website or YouTube, or request a PDF of the lesson so you can add the visual effect. A catch-all term. Now, we concluded the most recent podcast providing a definition of the Great Tribulation and proving how this 7-year period could not occur in these last days, for this would contradict multiple laws and principles of scriptural theology and prophecy. Notwithstanding, the Great Tribulation is an authentic end times event. The problem is this event, like many others, has been displaced by mainstream religion, which has been deceived into forcing multiple prophecies into these last days which do not fit. Along these lines, the Great Tribulation occurred in the first instance of the last days, as you can see by the timeline below. Without controversy, the Great Tribulation was experienced by the former nation of Israel during the destruction of Jerusalem. We discussed these matters in one of the earlier podcasts in this End Time series, End Times 102, The Next Level, which was posted on April 10th, 2023. If you have time, I encourage you to review that podcast so you can obtain a deeper understanding of the 3 major end times milestones. Now, the question I would like to chiefly entertain is this: why do so many believe the Great Tribulation will occur in these last days? The answer: the primary reason is due to the textual errors within our modern Bibles. On this wise, the word tribulation is often used as a catch-all term when it comes to matters of great affliction. In some cases, as in Matthew 24:21, tribulation is used accurately. Yahushua Messiah is referring to the Great Tribulation that would result in the destruction of the former nation and the holy city. However, in other cases, tribulation is not used accurately at all. Case in point, the KJV version of Revelation 7:14 uses Great Tribulation in error. The more appropriate term here is distress. Revelation 7:14 reveals, these are those coming out of the great distress, having washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Focus on the audience. Now, the question we should ask is sure, how do we know distress is the accurate interpretation for Revelation 7:14? The answer, because the audience in Revelation 7:14 is the renewed nation of Israel. Here lies the key, my friend, vis-a-vis the audience in Revelation 7:14 is not the same audience in Matthew 24:21. In Matthew 24, Yahushua Messiah is speaking to his disciples and the former nation of Israel. And in this instance, we have already confirmed that Yahushua Messiah was referring to the Great Tribulation. This was the word of prophecy assigned to that people. And since that time, Israel has ceased to be a nation, and our land continues to be trodden down by the Gentiles. As for Revelation 7, the audience here is the renewed nation of Israel. That would be us. We know this because the first 8 verses in Revelation 7 describes the sealing of these set apart ones. Again, that would be us. Look here, my friends. This is why I have consistently referred to the climax of these last days as the Great Distress and not the Great Tribulation. Per the timeline below, that would be seasons 3 through 5, the sifting of the nations, the destruction of Mystery Babel, and the day of Yahuwah. Now, the question of the hour then is, why is it more appropriate to describe the climax of these last days as the Great Distress? Or allow me to ask the question this way. What is the difference between distress and tribulation in this context? The answer is sure. Tribulation denotes the highest degree of severity as it pertains to a time of affliction and persecution. And this is exactly what the former nation experienced in 70 CE. Again, for their constant rebellion and for shedding the innocent blood. Distress, on the other hand, is not nearly as severe as tribulation. It is more appropriately defined as pressure and a lighter affliction. Now, here lies the inflection and the primary difference between the textual models of tribulation and distress. I ask you to consider it carefully as we progress this lesson. The objective of distress is to prove you, while the objective of tribulation is to destroy you. This is plain to see if you focus on the audience for each word of prophecy. To wit, the audience who experienced great tribulation was destroyed. Alas, that was the will of Elohim prescribed for the former nation. As for us, we are not going through the great distress to be destroyed. Quite the contrary, we are going through the great distress to prove to ourselves and to Elohim and to the world that we are indeed members of the chosen elect. To do so, we must endure many tests and trials. And yet, as I have said before, these tests and trials are fundamentally no different than the tests and trials we are going through in this day. The primary difference is how bad off the world will be during the great distress. Notwithstanding, we know the Father's plan is to guard us during the great distress. And thus, the tribulation that the world will endure will not come nigh to us. A gross contradiction of purpose. Now, despite the fact that we will not experience great tribulation in these last days, I can't say the same for the world, i.e., those who are not within the renewed nation. Remember, 6 billion men, women, and children will die in less than a few years. Trust me, it would take a great deal of natural disasters and divine judgment on top of a nuclear war to depopulate the earth to that degree. And these we are about to see. There will be a great tribulation in our day, but not for you and me. Now, I made that statement so I could ask the following question: what is the difference between the tribulation in these last days and the great tribulation? The answer: the great tribulation was directed at the former nation of Israel, and the tribulation of these last days will be directed at the world. Here again, this is why we must focus on the audience. For as I have said before, the people is the most critical of all the guidelines for understanding prophecy. Vis-a-vis, if you don't know who is being addressed, you'll never get it. You, my friend, will never see. Now, you must also remember how Israel is at the center of the prophetic universe. And thus, the word of truth defines the evil day that is just ahead as the great distress, because that is what we, i.e., the renewed nation, will endure. Brothers and sisters, you must get this. We will have pressures in these last days. We will have sorrow and we will have pain. And yet, by the power of the Spirit of Elohim, we will endure it all, and we shall yield a great gain. Likewise, we will not be subjected to the tribulation Yahuwah has prescribed to remove all the stumbling blocks out of the earth and those doing lawlessness. For as we have proven, this is a gross contradiction of purpose as it pertains to the purpose of these last days: to raise up the tribes of Jacob. Now, as it relates to the purpose of these last days, the Spirit is leading me to revisit many of the scriptural prophecies we reviewed during our lessons on the restoration of the nation of Israel last year. If you didn't bookmark these scriptures then, I advise you to bookmark them now. Isaiah 49, 5-26 reads, "And now said Yahuwah, who formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob back to him. He says, shall it be a small matter for you to be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob, and to bring back the preserved ones of Israel? And I shall give you as a light to the nations, to be my deliverance to the ends of the earth. Thus said Yahuwah, in a favorable time I shall answer you, and in the day of deliverance I shall help you, and I guard you and give you for a covenant of the people. Sing, O heavens, rejoice, O earth, and break out in singing, O mountains. For Yahuwah shall comfort his people and have compassion on his afflicted ones. And sovereigns shall be your foster fathers, and sovereignnesses your nursing mothers. They bow down to you with their faces to the earth and lick up the dust of your feet. And you shall know that I am Yahuwah. Those who wait for me shall not be ashamed." Jeremiah 29, 11 through 14 reads, "For I know the plans I am planning for you, declares Yahuwah, plans of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and an expectancy. Then you shall call on me and shall come and pray to me, and I shall listen to you. And you shall seek me and shall find me when you search for me with all your heart. And I shall be found by you, declares Yahuwah, and I shall turn back your captivity and shall gather you from all the nations and from all the places where I have driven you. I shall bring you back to the place from which I have exiled you." Brothers and sisters, these are only two of the hundreds of passages which testify to the purpose of the restoration of the nation of Israel, which is the foundation of these last days. The purpose? To raise up the tribes of Jacob, to lead the renewed nation, which is established upon the renewed covenant, into the renewed promised land, and to reign with Yahushua Messiah within the millennial kingdom. Understanding this purpose, the question we must ask ourselves is sure, namely, are there spiritual grounds for Elohim to incorporate 7 years of tribulation upon the renewed nation of Israel? And do the scriptures support this ideology? I think not, and all the prophets agree with me. As the Spirit speaks expressly, he testifies to the compassion Yahuwah is having on his people in these last days, with specific regards to the captivity we have endured as a nation for more than 2,000 years. My dear friends, who in their right mind would believe Yahuwah has ended more than 2,000 years of national captivity to add 7 years of great tribulation upon our heads? I'll tell you who in the next podcast. For now, I call you to remember the 7 guidelines of every word of prophecy. And as you deliberate upon the truth concerning these matters, I advise you to make sure you have all 7 guidelines aligned. And those guidelines are: 1, purpose, why it will happen; 2, time, when it will happen; 3, a season, a sign confirming the time; 4, a messenger, one who has been delegated to prophesy what will happen; 5, the sequence, how it will happen, i.e., the order of the events within the prophecy; 6, a people, who the prophecy will happen to; and 7, a place where the prophecy will happen. Now, here is the final word. His plans are sure to raise us up, for he has said, enough is enough. Search the scriptures, my friends, and you will find the restoration of the nation is not only about the people, it is about our Elohim. Trust me, he has had enough of the times of the Gentiles, and he is as ready to move on to the next phase as we are. Therefore, I admonish you again, get ready, get ready, get ready, for he is coming with 10,000s of his saints to reward all whose hearts did not grow weary and all whose minds did not faint. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on the word you have heard today, and as always, ask the Father to reveal the truth to you. For the children of Elohim live by conviction, and if he has not convicted you, or if you had not heard him concerning these matters, you should pray until you do. For today, I want you to meditate on the plans Yahuwah Elohim has for his children in these last days. I want you to think on the plans you believe he has for you. Now, ask yourself the following question. After 2,000 years of captivity and witnessing our land of promise being trodden down by the Gentiles, is Yahuwah planning to send his chosen elect, the remnant of Israel, those turning from transgression and Jacob, to the fiery sword of the Great Tribulation? Really think about this question, for your answer will not only reveal a great deal about your perspective, it will also reveal a great deal concerning your perception of Yahuwah Elohim. And as you will see in the next podcast, your perception of him will determine your future and your reality. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, End Times 292, The Truth About the Great Tribulation, Part 2. And the next podcast is entitled End Times 293, The Truth About the Great Tribulation, Part 3. I will post this podcast on Friday, June 21st, 2024. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim. Continue to watch. Continue to pray. Continue in fasting. And most of all, continue to be focused. For the end is coming. The end is near.